Fountain Square Park is at the heart of downtown Bowling Green. The fountain at the center and beautiful greenery has attracted citizens to enjoy the park for many years. In this episode of Spotlight on Bowling Green, we'll take a closer look at the history of Fountain Square Park, see some new renovations, and even learn what's in store in the future for the park.
So Fountain Square Park is really the city's core. It is its core park. It's a historic park located in downtown Bowling Green. It was actually the original site of the original courthouse that burned down after just a few years. Then it was moved just a couple blocks away and it was retained as a park. And it's always been Fountain Square Park. It's had several different fountains in it. Fountains have come and go, different improvements have come and go, but it's always been that central gathering place for the community. Even back in the 1800s when Bowling Green was just a small stop on a railroad track, it was that central gathering place for a community, and we want to ensure that it continues to be that central gathering place for the community. We want to ensure that we maintain that passive type of space so that we have the ability of the fountain and we have the trees and the landscaping and all those aspects that really make Fountain Square Park special to Bowling Green. We consider it our historic park. It's one of our oldest parks, if not the oldest park that we have in the system. And we, respect that legacy that park has. So whenever we looked at making improvements to the park, we wanted to pay homage to the historical nature of the park. We wanted to look at it and really maintain the character that park had. We didn't want to try to modernize it. We didn't want to create something that didn't blend in. So we looked at what are the features, how does it operate, how does it function, keep the scale where it should be. But it's like any other park. It has evolved over time. It used to have hitching posts for horses to tie to at one point. Those went away at some point. It used to have a fence around it. Those went away. It used to have a tower. That went away. That was moved out to one of our cemeteries. So really Fountain Square Park has always been that central communal place for people to gather. And that's what we want to maintain moving forward. So whenever we were looking at the projects downtown, we really tried to pull all the historical photos that we could of Fountain Square Park. We really wanted to look at, okay, what is the history of this? And the things that we've seen that were consistent throughout that were benches, walkways, fountain, trees, landscape, those types of things. So those were the things that were consistent. Now at one point we saw gravel pathways. And obviously we've upgraded those to more modern concrete and brick pavers. But trees come and go. So we had to remove some trees, plant some more trees. But the fountain stayed. We rehabbed the fountain a couple years ago through a separate project to stabilize it, to protect it, to ensure that fountain remained in operation for the next 20 years. Because every now and then you have to do those types of capital maintenance projects. And that's what the city's done to ensure that Fountain Square Park remains that central gathering place for the community, that there's always a place for people to come together, sit down underneath a shade tree and just have a conversation. That's really the essence of community, and that's what community is all about. We want to make sure that we have those places in our community.
Fountain Square Park recently underwent renovations to update some of the key features of the park. The sidewalks were expanded, crosswalks were added, and even alleyways surrounding the park were updated.
Yeah, some of the new renovations include the completion and the renovation of Capitol Alley and Morris Alley. Those were really important connectors outside the park and kind of helped bring the outside in. In one case, Tid Balls in the Public Theater of Kentucky on the Morris Alley side, and of course Heritage Trail and Circus Square on the other side of Fountain Square Park. So I think those renovations were really important to make the park more connected. A couple of other things that we did, we widened some of the sidewalk. We made the sidewalk ADA compliant, which helped with trip hazards and just the overall look. The updated, the safety, the fact that it helped welcome people around the square and into the businesses, into the attractions all around the square made a real difference, I think. Some other things we did were updating the street lights. They're now all LED street lights. So it's easier to see at night. The light's cleaner, it's more consistent around the square, and it's more focused on where you want the lighting to be. So we changed all that out as a part of the sidewalk reconstruction. Additionally, some other things that I think really made a difference and and transformed that portion of the square and the streetscape around it were the bike lanes that we added on College and State Street. We had in one place, we had 3 lanes wide on the College Street end of Fountain Square, just way too wide, encouraged traffic to go too fast. And so with the bike lane, it not only provided a different mode of transportation, but it helped slow down motorists so they can account for all the other things we did, including additional crosswalks. Fountain Square before, even though we had renovated the central portion of Fountain Square, including the fountain and all the walkways inside the park, there was really no good way to get to the corners of Fountain Square Park. And again, along State Street and College Street, the corners were kind of cut off. There was an extra passing lane, or a bypass lane, if you will, around Fountain Square. And so the only 2 really, approved places to cross were mid-block on Park Row and on Main Street. And so with those 2 connections, we ended up adding actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 8 more. So there's a crossing at each of the corners of Fountain Square Park now. It just makes it more accessible. If somebody were going from one side of the park to the other, from one business or one venue, one restaurant to another, it just makes it so much more convenient to utilize the park. And that's what we want people to do. We want people to enjoy it, to take the time to go through it, to sit, talk, meet, just make that a public space. And so with that, those extra crossings really made a difference for safety.
The first thing that we did was go in and, I designed the landscape with landscape plants that I felt would do better in that location and be easier for us to maintain. And so what we did was, after designing the landscape and ordering all the plant material, we went in and removed the existing landscape. The beds had been full of liriopy, and we removed all that liriopy. It had become kind of weedy and difficult to take care of. So we wanted just some clean mulch beds that would be easier for us to maintain and keep weeds at a minimum. After removing all of the landscape, we regraded the area, did some soil improvements and some tilling to prepare it for planting. And then we installed the plant that I had put into the design, which is some boxwood and some ground cover roses. We've got a few different types of ground cover roses, and then some small Japanese maple trees.
Many generations of Bowling Green residents have enjoyed Fountain Square Park through the years. Keeping the park updated and healthy is what keeps the park one of Bowling Green's best attractions. The city has more phases in store to continue updating Fountain Square Park.
Well, the area in and around Fountain Square Park is pretty much complete. So what we're looking to do now is to expand on those successes, if you will. So we're looking to increase sidewalk and improve sidewalk on down State Street towards 6th Avenue, and the same way back up College Street from 6th. So we'll make all that area around Circus Square Park more accessible. We'll have, again, improved crossing locations. We'll have improved sidewalk. We'll update the street lighting again, and importantly, carry on the same kind of a typical section that we had around State and College Street, which will include a bicycle lane. So we're going to take the model that we had a great public input on. We had buy-in from the public, and that's what we've constructed around the square. Now we're going to replicate that. We're going to make sure that those improvements are not just localized, but we can spread those out down toward Circus Square Park, and even eventually, we hope, toward Riverfront Park as we expand. And not to leave out, the other side of the hill, the western side. At some point, those same type of improvements can be had and again modeled after what we've done so far to connect the campus more to downtown. That's always been, something that's very important to us, because Western is so, intrinsic to what we do with the city in downtown. I could name several venues that rely heavily on Western students. Certainly it's tough during this time of COVID, but with that, we'll see a rebound. We'll see Fountain Square Park, again, busy, and I think it's the more accessibility, the increasing accessibility, the more welcoming and open and bright and inviting. That's what we're looking to do. We're going to make these changes and these improvements as physically possible, I guess you could say. Budgets are always important to meet, and we're gonna work all we can to continue these improvements as we go forward, because Bowling Green's growing, downtown is redeveloping, downtown is again improving, and we're just so proud to be just a small part of that.
Fountain Square is what we consider a level 1, and so it's maintained at a much more regular basis than some of our other parks, which means that we frequently are there 1 to 2 times a week, taking care of weeds, mulching, trimming the flowers and shrubs. And some of our, like other parks, like a level 2 park might be something that we visit once a week or once every 2 weeks. So it's a higher maintenance area because it's, the focus, the focal point of our city.
There are a lot of parks that have a lot of features and a lot of things. And when you look at Fountain Square Park, it is very simple. It is the elegance is in the simplicity of it. To just having some benches, a fountain, some walkways, some trees and landscaping. There's a simplicity to it. And I think that's what really makes it special. We don't try to put a lot of stuff in there. We try to keep it what it is and just let it kind of free form. So if people want to sit on the grass on a blanket, you can do that. Go and sit on a park bench and watch birds, you can do that. You can watch the fountain. There's a simplicity to it. I think that's what makes it special.
Well, I think there's a lot of things that make it great. Certainly, it's the history that it brings to Bowling Green. Not every city can boast of a park that's been around for 130 plus years, gone through transformation after transformation, and a lot of those are generational in terms of like the changes we're making now. What would have been a couple of generations ago unheard of to have a bicycle lane, but the changes that Fountain Square Park goes through and still able to maintain its identity, I think is what makes it special for Bowling Green. It's iconic. The fountain, of course, the namesake is iconic as well, but I think it's all the ambiance, the architecture around the square, the landscaping, certainly the trees, and we try to preserve trees in everything that we do, and the greenery and the look and just the feel of downtown. So it's a placemaker. It's a sense of pride in the community, quite frankly, and we're so happy to be able to bolster that, to improve on it, and yet help maintain its original character for the city.
To learn more about this or any other Spotlight on Bowling Green program, please call 270-393-3642 or visit www.bgky.org.